to start out with the parish prayer for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, we ask you to bless our parish. Help us to sincerely live in imitation of Jesus, your Son, with the power of your Spirit in our hearts. Bless all families in our parish, especially families that experience difficulties. Bless all the children and young people in our parish. Bless the old, the lonely, and the sick at home and in hospital. Bless those who grieve, those who despair of life, and all who suffer pain and hurt. Bless the grace of healing, peace, and hope to all hearts. May your love be upon us as we place all our trust in you. We ask your blessing too, Lord God, that we may become a place of hospitality, love, welcome, and support for all. I would like to add a special prayer that the Lord bless our new president in a week, that he and his cabinet may have wisdom and guidance with all the challenges they face. We make this prayer to you in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen. Amen. Holy Spirit. This last 2 weeks we had a wonderful article put, or this last Sunday I should say, we had a wonderful article put in our bulletin at church, which was so nice to see because there needs to be so much social awareness of suicide. And this covered so much of it. I think suicide can be very difficult for some people to discuss. Some people kind of avoid it. And of course, with this sort of education and direction, it becomes very rewarding for all of us who have gone through a loss of a family member. I think it's very important that families are able to discuss and communicate their feelings. And sometimes, if families that have suffered the loss of suicide can't do that, it hurts because if we keep the loved one in our hearts, the love and memories are in our hearts, we don't want it to be as if they did not exist. One person I would like to mention, Father Charles Ruby. He is director and founder of the Loss Program at Catholic Charities at the Archdiocese of Chicago. And we met with him several years ago now, about 8 years ago. He has worked there for 41 years, and he publishes once a month this article of the obelisk. I can tell you later if you want to get it. It's I think Mary Ellen put it on her DRE website if any of you want it, or you could talk to me and I can tell you how to go about it too if you want to receive it on your email every month. Father Ruby told us when we met with him that about 93% of all suicides that are committed involve some form of mental illness. And so with this in mind, I'd like to introduce our speaker tonight, Bonnie Fulghum, that will educate us on this and help us to bring more understanding. Thank you for coming, Bonnie.
Technical difficulties, it's always fun. So here we go. Guys, before we get started, I want to kind of do a disclaimer here. Suicide's a really hard subject to talk about. So if you have had someone who has died by suicide, oops, I touched the thing and it went crazy.
Just slip it back.
That's okay. If you've had someone who has died by suicide, and this gets really heavy for you, and you're Facebook Living with us, please put a comment and let us know so that I can reach out to you after we're finished, and just make sure you're okay. And guys in the room, if you need to, if you're okay, slip out your hand, and that will be my sign that you're okay and you're just stepping out for a second. So that's fine. I'm Molly Fulghum. I am the Executive Director for Mental Health America. I have a special needs son and a wonderful husband that I've been married to for 30 some odd years. And no, I don't know that old. Yes, I do. But we dated for 11, so I'm even older. But my passion coming into mental health, excuse me, I've been talking too much today. Mental Health America was suicide. Because unfortunately, when I was a teenager, one of the guys excuse me, in our group committed suicide, and he was a wonderful fella. He was the life of the party, and to have to stand over his casket and sing for his funeral was just almost unbearable for a 16-year-old girl that had just watched him, just get his first car and had all those dreams ahead of him. And then I had taken a job here recently, and one of my very closest friends who had 2 beautiful children, and she had gone through a divorce and was having some work issues. She called me on Friday, and on Sunday she died by suicide. So it's kind of been my passion, because I've kind of looked back in retrospect and said, what could I have done differently? The truth is, probably nothing, because I was there, I was open to talking. They made that decision on their own, but I did not recognize the signs because I didn't have the tools. So tonight, I hope I can give you some tools, because looking back, I can say, that was a sign, I missed it. But I couldn't help that because I didn't have those tools at that time. So you can only work with the tools that you have at the time that you're living your life, if that makes any sense. So, let's talk about suicide for a second, but I was going to read Father Ronald Rozier's, and I'm going to put my glasses on here because I'm old and I can't see. All death unsettles us, but suicide leaves us with a very particular series of emotional, moral, and religious scars. It brings with it an ache, a chaos, a darkness, and a stigma that has to be experienced to believe. Sometimes we deny it, but it's always there, introspectively, of our religious and moral beliefs. Now we're going to talk about the actual layout of suicide. Who does it affect? Well, this is Madison. In 2001, he took his own life. Admiral Jeremy Borda, and he took his life in 1996. And in May 29th, 1996, this wonderfully newly married couple did a suicide pact, and they died by suicide. Now you ask, well, I see ladies, I see men, I see professionals, I see young people, and the truth is, the face of suicide is anybody. 1 in 20 people that you talk to will have had thoughts of suicide, and that's sobering to me. 1 in 20. And you probably will not even realize that they've had those thoughts. And we're talking about what we experienced. Abandonment for the people who are left behind, rejection, guilt, feelings of being blamed, shame, stigma, the professional and personal rejection, social isolation, and post-stress disorder symptoms. Even the helpless victim of a hopeless situation faces a fate he cannot change, may rise above himself, may grow beyond himself, and by doing so change himself and turn a personal tragedy into a triumph. And I understand that you guys lost someone very close to you that wasn't actually here in Aiken County, Father Michel. And I know he was a bubbly, bigger-than-life person. And you think, oh my my gosh, just because of a diagnosis that, he might have, what could I have done differently? The truth is, there were other things going on. That was just the tip on the iceberg that led him. And honestly, without the tools, as I told you before, there's nothing you can do. But now you're going to have those tools, hopefully, and we can make differences for the people that are around us now. And we also want to comfort those people that are left behind. There are 47,173 deaths a year. That's an average. That was for the actual number for 17. I believe 19 will be a little bit higher, and I believe 20 will be out off the Richter charts. Just to give you some local statistics here, before May 1st, Mental Health America had never had a suicide call. As of today, we have had 52. Now, I look at that as a triumph, because that's 52 people who are still breathing because they called for help. But the sad statistic is, we had 35 who died by suicide in Aiken County this year. It is the 10th leading cause of death, and it is the 22nd leading cause of death in Aiken County. We have, per capita of 100,000 people, we have a higher suicide rate than New York City. Pretty scary. Okay. 75% of the people who die by suicide are males. And most of them are between 45 and 64 years of age. Last year we had anywhere from, I think it was 13 to 84 was the age range. We only had 2 females that died by suicide. All the rest were males in Aiken. If you look at this, you can pretty much see it's tremendously different for males in that age bracket. Why? We don't know the answer. There isn't such a common thing that we can put our finger on it and hopefully prevent it from happening. We just have not been able to get the statistics enough to be able to say, this is the common goal, we need to hit it there. We know that business pressure has something to do with it, but we have not been able to really put our finger on that. Over 1 million Americans will attempt suicide each year. Now, I'm stopping there for a second. Let that sink in. 1 million Americans. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we have a pandemic going on. And if everybody is so up in arms and so crazed about this pandemic, and it's real, it's killing people. But we lose 1 million a year, or they try, to this, and there's not that much emphasis put on it. So we need more prevention. We need more intervention. And so I say that, 1 million people is a lot of people that want to die. 9.8 million Americans struggle with suicidal thoughts each year. That's staggering to me. That's 9 million more than actually attempt, or 8 million more than actually attempt, sorry. If you look at the little red dot up there, if you look at the circles, and they tell you very, very simply, I'm alone, I'm a burden to people, I am not afraid to die. If you have all 3 of those, you are 95% more likely to use a lethal means to complete your suicide. So if you hear, well, I'm by myself, or the keywords by myself, I just don't think I can face that alone. Another keyword is, I'm just a burden to my whole family. And then you look at the statistics, you might can intervene. And then you have people of faith who are not afraid to die. They know where they're headed. They know where they're going. So why not get out of the burden, and why not get out of the situation that they're in? It takes 30 seconds for someone to decide that they're truly going to commit suicide. 30 seconds. If you can reach that person in those 30 seconds, you might be able to sway them one way or the other. Now, that's at the moment of intervention. I'm talking, let's go back and let's talk about prevention. That's where you are going to meet the people that you will want to talk to. You'll want to meet them, I'm alone, I'm a burden, I don't think I can do this, I don't know how I'm going to make it through. All those signs, if they have all their possessions with them in their car, if their car is stacked up and they have all their possessions in their car, that's another good sign that they are struggling with daily life. I put in here some really great books to read, and this kind of gives you your faith and suicide kind of combined. Managing Suicidal Risk by David Jobes is a great one. I highly recommend his book. It's a great read. And let's look at contemporary care of suicide. Most of the time, psychotropic drugs and medication is given to someone who is having a psychotic episode and thinking about suicide. Does it do a lot to minimize suicide? The evidence doesn't show it. How about inpatient psychiatric care for suicide risk? There's really no evidence base that helps either. It's pretty ineffective. If you have one death by suicide in your family, do you think you're at greater risk for having another one? Yes. It ups the risk by about 35 to 40%. So if someone, and you know that their loved one or their best friend has died by suicide, please reach out to them. They will welcome it because there should be no stigma around this. Earlier tonight I heard a story, and I'm going to use this story about the fact that someone didn't want to go to a funeral. And they argued about going to a funeral because this person had committed suicide. And to me that is horrible. There's no stigma. There should be no shame in suicide. It is no different than dying by a heart attack, cancer, any other disease, because you have a mental illness. 93%. You have a mental illness if you do this. So you just need the help and the tools. Now let's talk about the survivors, because we've kind of talked about, what suicide looks like in the numbers. But let's talk about the survivors. Who's left behind? Well, you have that long-term family member that is going to grieve forever. Then you have that short-term bereavement, which is a close friend, a work friend, and they are bereaved for many years to come. And then you have the people that are on the fringes. You have that person that's just affected by the suicide loss. They're sad at the time, but it really doesn't affect their daily living. And then you have these people who are just exposed to suicide. Now you're going to ask me, who are the people that are just exposed? Well, that's very simple. It's your first responders, it's family members, it's therapists, it's close friends, healthcare workers, community members, acquaintances, fans of celebrities. Now, how many of you remember a great celebrity that died by suicide not too long ago, and everybody was blown away? And we finally had this discussion of suicide because he was the happiest man on the planet, right? Robin Williams. And, you never know what that person's struggling with. You never know what their inner thoughts are unless you have a conversation with them. So it's very important, and I know we're in COVID where everything is, stay away from me, it's not interpersonal, but you have to have that relationship because people need people. And then we have community groups, and then we have, if it's a rural community, you might have close friends in that rural community. But the people who are affected, well, first responders, anyone who discovers the person, a family member, a therapist, friends, classmates, co-workers, team members, or neighbors. But let's talk about the people who are long-term bereaved, which are family members, therapists, because they feel like they have lost the battle, and close friends. I can tell you, I started my night off by telling you my story. And I can tell you, I have never gotten over and never stopped asking, gosh, what could I have done? And that is these people that carry it with them for the rest of their lives. Let's talk about depression versus anxiety. Most people say, oh, they were depressed. That's why they decided to complete suicide. Not necessarily. Anxiety seems to be a bigger trigger than depression. And I see this with COVID, because before COVID, I told you we've had 52 suicide saves. Before March 1st, we've never had a call. So COVID has put extreme pressure on our society. People are blowing up at people for no reason. People are not patient because they don't have what? Anybody got a guess in this room? It's quiet. Anybody got an idea? It's what we're missing? You know, there was only one gentleman that came in tonight, and he fist bumped me. And I was so thrilled that he wasn't afraid to come and fist bump me. Because right now, we're standoff. We don't get too close to me. And people need people. Depression, if it's clinical depression, and not just an ebb and flow, because all of us have, depression. I say it like this. We all live in a house. Some of us live in the basement. Some of us live on the first floor. Some of us live on the second floor, and some of us live in the attic. Our job is to hopefully get them onto the first or second floor. And how do you do that? Well, it's a hand up or hand down. We have to help those individuals come off the roof and come out of the basement. But basically, we live in an ebb and flow. So, how do you recognize these people who are anxious? Well, in our society, how do we do that? Anybody got any ideas? It's quiet again. Any ideas? Come on, just throw something out. I know you're thinking about something. How do you recognize somebody who's anxious?
To observe their patterns, if there's anything out of the ordinary.
Out of the ordinary patterns, and I'm sorry, you said? Withdrawal, yes, withdrawal. If they're over here and they're wringing their hands and they're pacing back and forth, and that's not their personality, you can pretty much well tell by their body language that they're stressed. Now, some people are really good at hiding it. Some people grind their teeth. Some people keep stress completely indrawn, and you just cannot tell. But when they hit the anxiety level, most of the time there's something outward, whether it's faster speech, whether it's wringing your hands, whether it's walking, some behaviors have changed. Yes, ma'am?
How about just short fuses?
Oh, yes, ma'am. But, honestly, quick temper is probably one of the fastest things that, if my husband was quick-tempered with me, I go, what happened at work today? What are you stressed about? Because you're not stressed at me. You're exactly right. Quick temper is a really great one.
So that's just stress, not anxiety.
Well, stress kind of moves and webs into anxiety. Stress and anxiety are basically they run on that same parallel. Anxiety is where you've lost the ability to basically handle your stress. So, Closeness Association with mental health symptoms among suicide exposure. And you can kind of see here, you have a greater risk if the closer you are. And that's pretty much what we've seen. If you have a family member who is, completed it, you're going to have someone that's probably in that family unit that is at a higher risk of completion again. Each death by suicide in the U.S. leaves behind 135 people. Some people leave more. Depending upon your life walk, it depends upon how many people are affected by your passing. And I can tell you that that is not the number that your beloved minister left behind, because he left behind many, many more, because I heard he was involved in all areas of ministry. And so he's probably left 500 or 600 people behind, including 48, now this is statistical, who felt close or a higher closeness to the person who has passed away. And they might be devastated and might need intervention or services, because there again, that repeating process of this is so important. Another wonderful book, she's written a book, Kay Warren. Surviving my son's death was barely survivable, but without my faith, I can't imagine it being survivable at all. And I think that is so true with most things. I mean, whether it is, cancer or any passing, I don't know how people do it without faith. I know my faith is a huge part of who I am, so I don't know how people do it. And those are the people that you guys might really want to look outside of your parish even for people to help, because they may be at greater risk, because you guys do have a community of faith. And then there's those people that maybe come to church every now and then, but aren't really strong faith-based. They would definitely need your ministry. She wrote a book called Reclaiming Life. I love this book. I can't live without hope. None of us should have to live without hope. All of us should walk with hope every day. And I try very hard in my walk every day, even though sometimes it's very difficult, to say, gosh, that's the neatest mask I have ever seen to a total stranger. Because their eyes light up and they're like, you're talking to me? I mean, we're putting things in front of our faces. We can't see people smiling anymore, so we don't really know whether they're mad, happy, sad. We don't know. And 96% of all communication, do we know how we communicate? Nonverbal. So, it's amazing to me that we don't have more, anxiety in the world at this point, because you can't tell what people are thinking. Let's talk about our faith at this point. And the early church kind of got it wrong. I mean, I'm just going to be really honest with you, and I'm not going to belabor over this, but we have some residual effects from the early church's beliefs. Some of the early church they thought it was a mortal sin. They thought that this was not something that, you hid them away in a closet. You did not, and we've come out of the dark ages, the Middle Ages, as I say, because we don't want that stigma. It shouldn't be there, because it's no different than any other illness. And I think I've said that 3 times, so hopefully it will stick, that suicide, mental illness, is no different than having diabetes, cancer, any other physical illness. It is an illness of the brain. Right now, you guys are leading the way. The Roman Catholic Church view on suicide is absolutely leading the way, because you realize that that person is not in their right faculties when they do this. And so I give you my applaud there, because it's amazing. I love what Charles Ruby said. There are still some priests who view suicide as a mortal sin. That has been categorically denied by church leadership. It is critical to the healing process for priests and church leaders to talk openly with parishioners and avoid fear-mongering over the church's view of suicide. And I say, you guys, you're leading the way, because other religious sects are not as progressive as the Catholic Church. I'm putting these books in so that you can look at them. There are some really wonderful ones, just to kind of give you some more support for suicide prevention. But out of all of them, if you read anything, please read the Suicide Funeral or Memorial Service, Honoring Memories and Comforting Survivors. Best book on the market, absolutely by far. And I don't get any credit because I'm not smart enough to write these books. Now let's talk about what resources you have. Let's talk about postvention. And it's a little early for you guys to really do postvention. 3 months down the road, I think you will be ready to do some of the classes and offer some of the classes to your parishioners on suicide and being aware of the signs of suicide. But you've done a great job by going and getting the literature so that you're putting it in your parishioners' hands so that they can read for themselves and say, maybe I want to learn more about this. But you have a Faith Alliance, and it's Living Works. You have how to respond to a member at risk for suicide, worship and spiritual resources, and all of those are going to be laid back on your table back there. But I'm going to go, please put this on your calendar, September the 10th. I used Bishop John to show that they have a Mass for National Suicide Prevention Day on September the 10th. This is the one he did on 2017. I'm going to leave you with a quote here, and then I'm going to talk about some of the handouts that I have. Remember, no one's life should be measured by its last act. And I say this because, again, I'm going to go back to Robin Williams, one of the most talented actors I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And people are now not remembering him because he was a phenomenal, funny man and an actor, but they remember him because he committed suicide. And so try to remember that's not how we want to measure someone's life. We want to measure it by all the fond memories we have of that person. We want to measure it by the love that they shared with people. And they may have had amazing talents. Some people paint, some people write, some people sing, some people, perform. Whatever their talents was, we want to, illuminate that, not what their last act was. I'm going to, are we back now with me? Okay.
You went down.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm going to leave the Ask Suicide Training brochure with your leadership. This is about a 2.5-hour class. It is amazing. It is for lay people. It puts how to ask in very simple, concrete terms, better than I can. But this is free, and it's offered as many times as you would need it. And you can, as long as you have about 10 individuals in a classroom, we will come back and teach this over and over. We have a suicide prevention hotline, basically coalition here. And we have this Suicide Lifesavers Club. And this allows us to keep our phone lines going so that we can interact with those people who call our line. And it's $10 a month. You get a beautiful t-shirt when you join. And, we just ask that you join for a year. And I'll leave these with you. And it's the Lifesavers Club. Also, I'm leaving some of these. This is the crisis hotline number for Aiken County. If you are having difficulties and you are experiencing crisis, you can call this 24/7, 365 days a year, and someone will meet you where you are. Phenomenal that we have that resource. We have Aiken Barnwell Mental Health in our back door. That is another phenomenal resources that we have. And then I'm leaving some brochures, the warning signs of suicide, and when you're thinking about suicide, how you're feeling, the emptiness, the hopelessness, and if we can just change those behaviors and give them hope and take them out of that dangerous situation or take that lethal means out of their hands, we can be the victors because we don't believe that people should die by suicide. We believe that every life is there and it's worth saving, and with enough intervention we can do that. But we have to have an army, and I tell our coalition, we're the battalion, but we got to get the people educated so they can be the army. These are just some mental health facts, but I've kind of spewed enough facts, I think, at you tonight. We have healing conversations, which are for people who have gone through a suicide And I'm leaving enough. I hope that everybody who has been affected will be able to read this. It's great information. It also has a training that is available for free. We have a screening program here in Aiken County. Mental health and Aiken Barnwell does a screening. It's online, and you can take it and you can see what your score is and see if you need help. And if you are taking this, by gosh, I bet you do. So at this point, most of us do need some form of mental health at this point. Taking that conversation to a different step, which is Safe Talk. We have trainings on Safe Talk as well, and that's through Aiken Barnwell Mental Health. But if you need someone to set that up for you, I will be more than happy to be the go-between for that as well. Just have honest conversations with people. It's the most important thing that you can do is to have honest conversations. And people know when you're just asking to ask. You know, hey, how you doing? That's not really asking. You don't expect people to tell you how they're really, I mean, hey, fine, good, you know, great, you know, they go on. But if you see somebody and you think they're truly in crisis, you need to say, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Or, hey, let's go sit over here on this pew and let's have a conversation. Because, you know, you just don't seem like yourself. Those are the ways that you open that door to ask, are you okay? And I'm going to end with, it's okay not to be okay. I mean, we all have things in our life that push us to the boiling point. And it's okay to seek help. Nobody's going to belittle you. Nobody's going to say that, oh, that, you know. No, that stigma should be long gone. Because everybody should have that person in their life that they can talk to and know that it's safe to talk to them. And it's okay not to be okay. Now, I thank you for allowing me to come tonight. I hope I have not run over my time. I don't know where we are with time because I don't have a time. I should have worn my watch. But do you have any questions for me?
Lonnie?
Yes.
What is your opinion on if this person is in crisis, of coming out and saying, are you thinking of taking your life?
There is nothing wrong with that because guess what? The suggestion of suicide has never been proven that it is going to lead to that person committing suicide.
Because I've heard in training that you should ask that.
Oh, yes, ma'am. You, by all means, that's what ask is all about, is ask that person, you know, are you really contemplating suicide? And then depending upon the answer that you get should be the actions that you take. And sometimes you have to probe a little deeper. I mean, they may say, oh, no, not me. But you can tell by their actions that you might need to ask again. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We have a number 211 in Aiken. Are you connected into them?
Yes, I am a partner agency with them. And 211 is a fabulous resource for our community in Aiken. However, it is not a suicide hotline. Those individuals are trained to get you help when you need it. And I will be very honest with you, when this all started, when COVID all started, I went to my board of directors and said, hey, we've had 13 suicide calls, we've never had them before. I feel very inadequate to take these calls. And I, of course, did training, and I've done a lot of training. But I will tell you, the biggest thing that I found in every one of those calls is not so much that I was a therapist, not so much that I was a wonder whiz at something to say. I was there to listen. And giving them that ear to listen was so much more important than actually talking to them. Being there to say, you know, it's okay to feel this way. And I'll be very honest with you, I have been on conversations that took 8 hours to get that person to safety. The first gentleman that I talked to, he said, I have a gun, I have the bullets, they're in the gun, you've got 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't blow my brains out.
Mhm.
And I said, sir, you're a living human being and you have worth. I said, that's the first thing I'm going to say to you, but tell me what's going on. Why do you feel this way? And then from there, he talked to me and talked to me and talked to me, and finally told me where he was and that we could get someone. I stayed on the phone with him until we got him to safety, and law enforcement arrived and he let them in. And he's still doing great today. I check on him on and off. But I mean, people hurt for different reasons, and people are really hurting right now. It could be our government, it could be their jobs, it could be financial burdens that we don't even know about. It could be the fact that they're scared to death to get COVID. It could be that that their child has a disability and they're afraid they're going to die with COVID because who's going to take care of their kid? It could be that they don't want to leave their husband behind. It could be that their husband was killed in an automobile accident. It could be thousands of different reasons. And the sad truth of that is we all have hurt in our life. And it's how we deal with that hurt that really counts. And I think that having groups like this one, where you're lay people that are going into your community of faith and helping them, is phenomenal. Because many, many churches do not have this kind of program, and they need to. Because it is, you are reaching people where they are, not where they're coming in and asking for help. You're reaching them where you know they need help. And that is a phenomenal thing that you are doing.
So I like your phraseology. You don't seem to be yourself. Are there some other, like, just verbiage that would be good to use with somebody?
It depends on the moment. I just kind of threw those out tonight. It could be, there again, every situation is different. And I will tell you, the gentleman that called me on Christmas Eve and was telling me all about what was going on in his life, there was nothing I could say to him because he already knew the answers to what was going on. He knew what the problem was. He just didn't know that he wanted to fix it. And sometimes that's the problem. I mean, we know that we've done or said or, and we don't want to say we're sorry or go back to that person and, and we're the problem. But you can't tell that person that at that moment. You've got to say, well, maybe this is, so it really depends on the situation. It really isn't, there's no cookie cutter answer. But are you okay? Do you have thoughts of suicide? All those things are super important to ask.
I didn't know we had so many resources.
We have a lot of resources. Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
And if any of you are wanting to join the Suicide Coalition, please reach out to me. I am the fearless leader for now. And we just had a meeting today. We want faith-based people who are on the ground working with people so that we know that we're reaching every sect of our community, because there's no discrimination here whatsoever. I mean, it affects all of us. Yes, ma'am?
Have you ever had anyone that has said they would like to speak to maybe one of the Stephen ministers, or they would like to talk? I mean, can you recommend the Stephen ministry? Because we have 5 churches, I believe.
I am not a therapist. I am a layperson that has just been trained in many different aspects of suicide and of, so yes, I would be, and I do tell them a lot. I ask them, do you attend a church? It's kind of a sticky wicket, but I do ask them, do you attend, do you have faith? Because that is usually a door open that I can open that door and say, hey, go to your minister and talk to them. I didn't even know that you guys had this program until you called me. So I'm excited because yes, if they, I can now say, please call your Stephen ministry group and talk to someone because they're there for you. But I really think that you need to mirror this program to other churches in our area, because I think it's a fabulous idea. And I'm giving you my whoop whoop because I think it's amazing. Because-
I'm glad we connected with you then,
Well-
if you didn't know.
No, ma'am. And lay people are the people that are going to make the difference. Therapists can only do so much, and there's so few of them. So you guys are going to be the people who are going to make the difference every day on the front lines, reaching people who are having these thoughts. So,
Are there resources, aside from the pandemic time, which is different, are there resources in schools
yes.
for this?
Yes. We do a program called I See Don't Duck, which I just wrote a grant. It didn't totally fund it for this year because the grant that I had written was canceled by the pandemic. And it would have totally funded, getting it into every school. But we will get it into 10 schools this year. But with the pandemic, we have to go in with the counselors at the school. And we give them all the information and all the tools to get mental health awareness into the hands of the families that need it. Anything else?
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let me just say, I love my job. I love what I do. And I hope that to partner with you guys and do more in the future because, like I said, you get my whoop whoop. That's my end for tonight. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.